This sitting is now resumed. Prior to the suspension, this Honourable House was dealing with order of business. To that, we now revert.
Messages from Her Excellency the Governor General, petitions, papers, government notices, private members' notices, notices of questions, reports from select committees, first readings of bills, statements by ministers, congratulatory and/or obituary speeches, personal explanations, motions for leave of absence, oral replies to questions, notices of motion for the adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance, orders of the day.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that standing orders number 6, 16, 18, 20, 42 subsection 5, 43 and 44 be suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting.
Second, please. Second.
The question is that the aforementioned orders be suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting. Those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it. The aforementioned orders are suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting.
Government business. Order number 2. In the name of the Honourable Leader of the House, to move that the House resolve itself in the Committee of Supply to consider the grant of sums of money for the service of this island.
I beg to move that the House do now resolve itself into committee. Sorry, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that Your Honor do now leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee of supply to consider the grant of sums of money for the service of this land.
I thought I was in here. I should have given you as leader of the House.
The question is that the Speaker do not leave the chair and the House resolving itself into Committee of Supply for the grant of sums of money for the service of this island. All those members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Right, but they got one in committee. They ain't going to. All right, I can get that sorted for you. Wait, they got foil the leader of the House. We had a foil the leader of the House too.
This House is now in Committee of Supply.
In the name of the Honourable Minister of Transport, Works and Maintenance, to move the passing of a resolution to grant the sum of $7 million from the Consolidated Fund and to place it at the disposal of the government to supplement the estimates 2018 to 2019 as shown in supplementary estimates number 1, 2018 to 2019, which form the schedule to the resolution. Head 40, Ministry of Transport and Works, in the amount of $7 million.
Honourable Member for Christchurch West.
Madam Chair, this matter to grant this $7 million in Committee of Supply should really be a simple housekeeping matter. What essentially happened, Madam Chair, is that when this $7 million was first granted, it was first granted under a particular number in the estimates, SAC 785, assets under construction. However, the Treasury Department instructed that this was not the correct number at the time. And in fact, the number should have been structures rather than assets under construction. So rather than SAC 785, it should really be SAC 223. So in order to facilitate the payment of the contractors, and in order to facilitate government being able to make payments on this, the Treasury has asked, and by extension the Ministry of Finance, has asked that this be under this particular number rather than under the previous number. So it's actually not a cost to the consolidated fund because it is balanced by $7 million being allocated under a previous number. And that is essentially this matter. But it goes much further than that. And I'll explain to you why, Madam Chair. And I'll do this by way of going through the particular roads and the amount that actually has been completed, because the contractors have actually completed significant percentages of the works on these roads to begin with. So the roads that were identified under the last administration were the Flagstaff Road, 690 meters long, Harry Smith Road in St. Philip, 490 meters long, Kings Village Road, St. Michael, 345 meters long, Lowthers Road, Christchurch, 577 meters long, Rollins Road, St. Michael, 270 meters long, Padmore Village, St. Philip, 320 meters long, Little Bay Road, St. Lucie, 592 meters long, and Long Bay Village Road, St. Philip, 1 kilometer basically long. Of those roads, Madam Chair, the contractors have done significant work. Harry Smith has been completed 65%. Lowthers Road completed 40%. Little Bay Road completed 65%. Padmore Village 60%. Rollins Road has not started, and I'm going to come back to that one. Flagstaff Road only 10%. Long Bay Road only 10%. Kings Village 5%. And the reason I said I'd come back to Rollins Road has not started. And the reason that Rollins Road has not started is partly because there's very little work in Rollins Road to be done. I know Rollins Road well. I grew up in Dighton Road. Rollins Road is a nearby road. There's very little work to be done in Rollins Road. And there are roads that need a lot more attention, even in the same constituency of St. Michael South. And we know why three of the 6 roads were picked from St. Michael South. We understand that. And we understand why that was the case. But the important thing about this, Madam Chair, the important thing about this is, first, unlike the previous administration, who, when a government changed and the roads that they started did not go and complete and left them for years unfinished, this Barbados Labour Party administration will not do that. And we will go and finish all of the roads that the previous administration started. Because at the end of the day, it is about the people of Barbados. And I give this House my solemn commitment that we will complete all of the roads that were started by the previous administration. Be it 5% done, 10%, 65%, whatever it is, we are going to go and complete all of those roads. The one that was not started, though, I cannot give you a commitment that that will be the one chosen to do, because it was not started. I know the road, and there are roads that are much worse than that road. And I will submit that we will be looking to change that to a different road, because there are other roads much worse than that one to be done rather than Rollins Road. And the honourable member, the current member for St. Michael South, must understand that if you've gotten Kings Village, you would have gotten the roads in Baylan, you would have gotten others. You must permit me the opportunity at least to change and give one of your colleagues an opportunity to get a road who has not had the benefit of one recently. But the more important point, Madam Chair, is this. So these contractors have expended their own money to take some of these roads 65% of the way. Can you imagine that not one contractor has received a cent from this project as yet? Some of them would have expended almost $1 million, and they have not received a cent. Some of them, I understand, have been brought to the brink of bankruptcy because the government did not see it fit to pay them for the work that they have done. But it goes even further, Madam Chair, because this shows the mischief that can occur when Parliament comes to an end, but the executive continues to work. Because if they had taken care of this before Parliament came to an end, because this is just a housekeeping matter, they would have been able to pay the contractors on time. But no, instead they allowed Parliament to come to an end, so they could not come and do a housekeeping matter, so therefore the contractors could not be paid. And this is a mischief that cannot be allowed to happen in Barbados. We must expect in Barbados that if Parliament comes to an end, it must be triggering an election. Not weeks and weeks waiting until Parliament has come to an end and waiting for an election to be called. Because that is the mischief that worked in this scenario. Because if they had done the necessary housekeeping in advance, then they would not have gotten themselves into the trap of Parliament coming to an end, so therefore they could not come and change the number and pay the necessary contractors who needed to be paid. So this is a very important matter, a simple matter in terms of changing a number so that we can pay the contractors for the work that they have done. But it's an important matter from a fundamental point of view of how government and governance should operate in this country. And we need to be very cognizant and be very aware that Parliament serves an extremely important function and cannot be dismissed, because it goes to the fundamental ability for the country and Barbados to be able to meet its commitments as it relates to the contractors and the people of Barbados that do work for this country. So I want honourable members to understand and to be very aware that the ministry is doing all of the work necessary to make sure that we meet our commitments, to make sure that all of the resources of the ministry are shared equitably amongst all members, and that as we take on the commitment and the requirements that the people of Barbados have entrusted that trust and confidence in us to put things that were wrong in Barbados right. And one of those most important things is to get the road infrastructure back to what it used to be. I remember, Madam Chair, of a road that was started in 2007, before the government changed, in Evelyn Terrace. And when the government changed in 2008, that road just needed the final surface on it. This is now 10 years later, 2018, and Evelyn Terrace has not yet been completed over a 10-year period. because Christchurch West was completely neglected by the previous administration. When I sat on the opposition benches, every time a matter came about public works, I would say, I only want one road. And I would say that is Golf Club Road. Every single time we spoke, members would say they wanted 3, 4, 5 roads. I would say I only wanted one road. That was Golf Club Road. Every single time. The member for St. Thomas would remember, I would always say, one road, Golf Club Road. And I am pleased to say that Golf Club Road had finally been completed. Not because the honourable members at that time, not because the members at that time were sympathetic to Christchurch West, but because I was persistent and consistent in asking over and over and over again for that one road, Golf Club Road. And, Madam Chair, I want to say that even although they did Golf Club Road and they left out Evelyn Terrace, I want the people of Evelyn Terrace to know that the Ministry of Public Works will be coming to get Evelyn Terrace sorted out as a matter of urgency. So, Madam Chair, I think I've pretty much exhausted the meat of this. It is essentially a change of the number so that we can facilitate the payment of the contractors and so that we can get the works done again. Oh, and one more matter I wanted to bring to the attention of the House, and it is this. Wherever the Ministry of Public Works is doing road repairs or road rehabilitation, I have instructed them that wherever possible and when available, I am asking that we do the trenches for the services such as natural gas. It is unconscionable that we go and complete a whole road and then a year or 2 years later come and dig that road back up to put in a trench for natural gas. So we are not only assessing the water supply, changing the water pipes and the roads before we do the final surface, but also I intend to get all the services such as natural gas put in before the final layer is done. And I'm happy to say that the National Petroleum Corporation has advised me that the one that they are ready, willing, and able to do is the Flagstaff Road. And the member for St. Michael South Central can rest assured that we will be working very hard to get the natural gas put in on Flagstaff Road. I guess it comes from my previous assignment as chairman of the National Petroleum Corporation, because we recognized that so many times we do roads and we could have put in the infrastructure which would have reduced the cost to the corporation or to the government in general. And we lose an opportunity that we could have utilized at that time. And I'm asking my technical people, let us not miss these opportunities. Let us take the bull by the horns. Let us put the infrastructure in before we do the final road. And with those few words, Madam Chair, I ask that this now pass.
Chair.
Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few words to be a part of the discussion around what the Honourable Member for Christchurch West considers to be not so significant an issue, in that it is, in effect, a change in designation with respect to monies allocated for works already in progress, which we understand these things do happen. I notice my honourable colleague, though, did suggest that those roads identified in the schedule were perhaps chosen against the backdrop of a particular political motivation, and that the administration of the day identified those particular roads to gain advantage with reference to a certain part of the political geography of Barbados. I take it at face value, the assurance that he has given to us in this House, that under his watch, this type of thing is not going to happen. Having given us that assurance, though, I did observe that he promised his colleagues. He promised his colleagues some help. He promised his... And Madam Chair, I was getting to that. He promised his colleagues that he would ensure that this type of road program would also see their constituents receiving some relative benefits. And I simply just wanted to remind him that St. Michael West is part of the political geography of Barbados, and that I consider, and that I consider, and that I consider him to be a colleague. Obviously, this program is not his. He was not in that office at the time. But when the time does arrive that he must be the chief administrator with respect to the allocation of this type of social service, St. Michael West needs to benefit. I will draw your attention to what I consider to be a very dangerous situation existing along Bridge Gap. There's a rather deep canal that runs away from the Eagle Hall main road towards the Goodland main road. And right along that long stretch of the Bridge Gap Road is a very deep and dangerous canal. And I believe there is a situation or an accident, perhaps a tragedy, just waiting to happen. I'll write him a note, as is being requested, of course. And this canal drain needs to be covered in some way that it could still be easily accessible, because it really does carry a huge volume of water when there's a heavy rainfall. So I would want to invite your attention to that particular matter on Bridge Gap. Deacons Road, which is shared by the constituencies of St. Michael West and St. Michael Northwest, is a heavily traversed road, both vehicular traffic and pedestrian traffic. And there's a marked absence of sidewalks. There's a primary school at Deacons Road with a large number of children who must traverse this road. It's a very dangerous situation, and I would want to bring that to the attention of the ministry and the Honourable Minister as well. The other matter has to do with the provision of humps. Now, I made this representation in a former life to a previous Minister of Public Works and Transport, who is not now in this house. And he told me that we did not necessarily have to have these humps in St. Michael West. We didn't have to watch what was happening elsewhere. But I believe the safety of the people of St. Michael West must be of a paramount concern to me as their representative. And you have a situation where you have private sector vehicles providing a public service transport, ply the Hinesbury Road route, they ply the Eagle Hall route. They're faced with congestions at peak hours, especially around the Eagle Hall lights, around the Hinesbury Road, Bridge Road lights. And many a time they make a diversion through these very heavily populated areas in Hinesbury Road, in School Gap, in Greenwich Road, in Lodge Road, in Dr. Curland. They do it through Strathclyde. They do it along Gills Gap and Alkins Land off Eagle Hall. And it really presents a serious threat to limb and life of pedestrians, that I just would want to put that on your plate, as though you didn't have enough on your plate already. But I have to represent the interests of the people who elected me and sent me here. And so I raise those issues with you. Just one more matter. You did indicate your concern over the untidy mess left by the last administration, situation where persons performing contractual services, roadworks, have not been paid, used their own money. And you had suggested that we really need to do something about affecting change to our parliamentary system such that that ugly mess could not be facilitated. And I think that what you're talking about here, perhaps you do realize, is a fixed date for elections in Barbados, and I believe this Parliament will have that debate one of these days, but I just want to register very early my support for the notion of Barbados having a fixed date for elections going forward to avoid this untidiness. Thank you.
Honourable Member for St. Thomas.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. I want to indicate, ma'am, and to express, I should say, my heartiest congratulations to the Honourable Member for Christchurch West and the Honourable Minister of Public Works. He has started on the right path. Fairness is the name of the game, and empowerment is what the Barbados Labour Party will continue to stand for. And therefore, I believe that the residents and businesses and others who are operating in those general areas that were identified by the Honourable Member should be given the opportunity to have better roads, better services. And I know this might be tangential, but I know the Honourable Minister has hit the ground running. And therefore, I've seen changes in the transportation area in St. Thomas, particularly Sturgis. As a result of his intervention, we were suffering for the last year, and now we are seeing buses again, so I can speak from a background of knowledge. And I call it making wrong things right, ma'am. I want to say as well, ma'am, that I support the supplementary, and I will not let this opportunity pass me without first congratulating the Minister for how he has started, and I trust that as times go by and as this economy gets better, that more of us will be able to speak with a measure of gratitude towards what the Minister will be able to do once the funds are available and we get those projects off the ground. Too many of our roads in Barbados are in bad shape as a result of the neglect of the last administration, and I pray that the Honourable Minister will soon get to St. Thomas to be able to help me with some roads that sadly, in the last administration of another political party, I would have asked that then Honourable Minister in May of 2013, just a few weeks after the general election, to assist me with a visit through the constituency to be able to identify some very, very bad roads that have not become deteriorated because of poor work. I didn't think that at all, because when my predecessor left in 2001, most of the roads in St. Thomas, if not all of them, were in good shape. But then I've got a depot that remains faithful to the cause. Once they get the materials and the equipment, the Bagatelle depot workers work assiduously without looking for anything or expecting anything, because they are mostly rural people of whom I always speak, who work because they have a conscience, who work because they know they have to make an outstanding contribution to the development of that particular ministry, as well as to the people of Barbados who are the taxpayers. So I'm going to ask the Honourable Minister through you, ma'am, give Bagatelle the equipment, give that depot the staff, because some of them were sent home, give Bagatelle whatever is necessary, and the job will be done again, so that the people of St. Thomas will not have to come through me to keep asking and requesting and sometimes literally begging for the potholes and the slipper drains and the bridges that require upgrades and so to be done. The Bagatelle depot has the staff that is committed and willing to do it because they've done it before. You must appreciate, ma'am, that we are living in a constituency and in a zonal area in the north where we get the heaviest of rainfall. It is not even measured by the meteorological office. When there's no rain in town or Christchurch or St. Philip, St. Thomas, St. Andrew, St. Joseph in particular, have torrents of rain that impact on our roads and our drains, our gullies, our watercourses. And we do not have the resources as a result of whatever changes the last administration had made to be able to upgrade or repair. And therefore, ma'am, I am asking the Honourable Minister to give me some assistance in respect of a particular road called Rockhampton Road that was started under a Barbados Labour Party in 2006-07. It only required the bitumen. It was done by the Rural Development Commission. And again, I speak for rural people across this island, as I know will be the case with urban people and urban workers who pay their taxes into the consolidated fund and should be able to acquire some of those resources that other Barbadians will get. And we find it very hard, ma'am, every time we seem to be shifted on the back burner. Sometimes it's because a lot of people, even some of my colleagues might want to say it's a safe seat. Therefore, there's nothing called a safe seat in Barbados, and we saw that on the 24th of May. There's no safe seat. And therefore, when the resources are being given out, I am not begging or requesting in any way to the detriment of others, but I'm asking because I know my depot that I speak well of, that is located in St. James Central, I must tell you, those men and women work beyond human call to deliver the services because they're honest workers. They're proud Barbadian workers, as our forefathers and many of us, or all of us in here are. And therefore, I'm asking for Rockhampton Road, Jackson, St. Michael, ma'am, to be able to get the bitumen, the hot mix, whatever you call it, because it was about 90% complete. But because a Democratic Labour Party government felt that the people of St. Thomas should get nothing, it was overlooked, even though there were 4 ministers at that time, between 2008 and 2018, who served the Rural Development Commission, including one of those ministers who lived in St. Thomas. It is sad, but the residents in Rockhampton Road are expecting better, and they're looking out with a measure of eyes that are crying and begging because the fire service truck can't go in if there's a fire because of the unevenness of the road, even though it had on the marl and so on. The pools of water, the mosquitoes, the taxi men put them off on the main road in Jackson. They have to walk in. The garbage truck at one point when they don't even go anywhere near there. And this is not something they want to be rehashing all the time. I just want to bring it to the minister, the Honourable Minister's attention, the real need for that to be tackled as a matter of urgency and bring a level of fairness, a level of comfort to the residents in that Rockhampton Road, Jackson area. We call it Harper Valley. And I will pull the file so the Honourable Minister could be brought up to date on the status. The other one I would wish to ask for, I not expect him to do the impossible, because I know that the cake has to be divided up across the island. But I'm just putting these on the front burner for the Honourable Minister, and then the letters will follow again. Because if there's any ministry in Barbados, perhaps except the Ministry of Tourism, they will tell you that I flood them with correspondence, because once the residents have issues, I know people lose their lives, they lose their babies, they have to walk through some perilous roads to get to and from their homes and to their work. I represent their interests. That's what I've been put here for. And therefore, I'm asking the Honourable Member to put in his diary, Ericott through Canefield. Ericott is slipping because every year, $7 million for the past 10 years were put in the estimates for the Scotland district, where the Honourable Member for St. Andrew, the Honourable Member for St. Joseph, St. Thomas, and I think the outskirts of sections of St. James, we have the highest level of slippage on the island, including St. John. The Honourable Member for St. John will have some of that. But little or no money would have been spent in those communities. I can't speak for St. John, ma'am, because that was another story, but I can speak for what happened to us in the north. And therefore, I am asking that some funds be made available to help to correct some of the slippage in rural Barbados. And I'm begging now for St. Thomas, because I have a road called Bloomsbury. It is one of those words, it is not as bad as White Hill, and I share the feelings and the sentiments of the Honourable Member for St. Andrew, because most of my relatives are from White Hill, and I've been there and seen it, and I communicate with the folks there, so I know how they have suffered and are still suffering. So I support that visit that was done last week. But Bloomsbury is a road that has a depth of about 40 to 50 feet that will put you down to the level where the rivers are. We call it Barrow's Gully, but it would be to the west of the Flower Forest, so you know the depth of which I speak. That road has been collapsing for a while. Correspondence was sent, photographs were sent, nothing was done. with the last administration over that 10-year period. And you would appreciate that with the constant rain and so on, the road is even worse. My biggest concern, and I'm not putting any fear in the hearts of anybody, but all persons who go there know, if visitors come to the island and they come from the West Coast, and they come to go through by earthworks to pick up some pottery because they want to support the tourism, the business, and to help the small craft people and the large ones as well. And they take a trip through Vaucluse that was impassable for more than 5 years because of poor drainage. And that seems to have been deliberately done, which I will not dwell on now with this particular aspect of what we are doing. And then they come through Canefield, come through Carrington's Village, Sturgis to get on to Bloomsbury, to the Flower Forest, to Mahogany, to Harrison's Cave, to Highland Outdoor Tours. Those are tourism attractions, but the roads are the worst. Taxi men are complaining about how the vehicles are deteriorating. The ZM drivers and so on, they too are complaining, because to get to the Flower Forest, one has to travel that side of the road if they are coming from Mahogany and the other tourist attractions. And this road, by fair, is, if Chapman's Village going through Trial Path has to be closed for whatever reason, if there's any slippage that will impact, that road is not the best road for any truck or even the buses to go. And I know in the past it had collapsed. That Trial Path Road, that Springvale Road had collapsed, and everything had to be diverted through Bloomsbury in order to get through Darthole. That is no more right now, and I am empathizing with the Honourable Member for St. Joseph on that. But there will be no way to get into St. Andrew unless we go through Hill Turner's Hall, or we come from the other end through by the All Saints Church to get to St. Andrew. So I'm making a plea for Bloomsbury, because the bus that will have to take the Allen School children will have to pass there, and to take the residents for St. Andrew, but more particularly now, as is the bus route there, the students who go to the Grantley Adams Memorial School, they suffer from the transport board, they hardly get a bus. A few weeks ago, 7 o'clock in the night, the poor little children are coming home in a bus at Bar School, hungry, tired, afraid, all kinds of challenges. I am happy to see a change of government with a heart that cares, and the Honourable Minister, the Honourable Member for St. Michael's of Christchurch West has started the ball rolling to let us get back proper services. So Bloomsbury will be the next road.
Honourable Member, you have 5 minutes.
I will wrap up, ma'am. There has been a trend, a policy that was in place before the Honourable Minister would have been a part of the government as a minister, where Padmore Village Road near Redmond's Village was paved around 2005. And it was my insistence that when the road would be paved, to lead you through to cost you less. I'm not advertising, but I'm using that because that's where the road is. My insistence was that the natural gas pipes be laid before the road was paved, as the Honourable Minister has indicated, which makes sense. That is the wisdom coming from that young man. And therefore, I have my natural gas pipes too already laid in Melrose, Padmore Village, St. Thomas. And I'm waiting for the natural gas that runs through the back of Millennium Heights and goes all the way over to Rock Hall, St. Thomas, and the residents in there cannot get it. There was money in the budget before and all that. Nothing has happened. And the final one is the Cane Garden area, where I have more than 500 houses. And the residents there are all good people. They're paying their taxes, I believe, all of them. And they're asking for a road called Sunflower Road near the Gabriel Edgell Funeral Home that has never been paved in about 40 years. The rain again and the runoff water and the flooding and so has caused that road to deteriorate. I am asking for some help where that is concerned, because we really need to get those folks getting a better road to service them. And the final comment, ma'am, is associated with the utility companies that have to be a part of roadworks. I am saddened that there was a policy before in a Labour Party time where whenever a road was to undergo some kind of upgrades or construction or whatever, all of the utility companies came together. The light and power company, the water authority, the telephone companies came together. And whenever they did their own excavation, for whatever reason, if there's a burst pipe or they had to do some kind of installation, all the information was fed through to the Honourable Minister of Public Works, who would then make sure that the facility will be repaired or upgraded to the level it was at before. All that has fallen apart, and that is what you see our roads are breaking up every time, because when there's excavation from the Water Authority or the other utility companies, they left it like that for years. The water penetrated, so many things happened and caused these roads to open up and these potholes and create challenges for motorists. The folk of Cane Garden Park and Care Garden generally, where we have Peach Court and Platinum Drive and so, those roads are fine for the time being. But unfortunately, last year, a conglomerate sought to have natural gas installed from way down by what we call the Steel Donkey roundabout in Jackson, all the way up to Layers. Ma'am, you should have seen the inconveniences. Massive trenches, sidewalks dug up, but it bypassed all of the persons in those communities to get to the location at Shefet and Layers. Now the residents there are waiting with bated breath to be able to have access to the natural gas too.
Honourable member, please wrap up.
I'll wrap up. I hope that the Honourable Minister, who is responsible for energy, and all others would come together at some point in time in the near future for those residents who have suffered so much over a 6-month period with the relocation and so on of the road, that they too will get a chance to enjoy a better life there, and that the natural gas will be distributed to them in a timely fashion so that it can ease the situation that they all experience. And so again, I want to say how happy I am that the Honourable Member Ma'am has come to make wrong things right by putting that particular aspect of the road construction under the right head, or under the right location in the estimates, and that we look forward for even better things to happen as the years go by, because when you start right, you can only end up right. When you start wrong, you end up wrong, as we have seen happen over the last 10 years. I wish to thank you, ma'am.
Honourable members for St. John.
Madam Chair, I want to add my support to this particular supplementary. At university, I watched a movie called I, the Worst of All. And I believe when it comes to roads in Barbados, my constituency is the worst of all. So I am here asking the Honourable Member for Christchurch West to please remember St. John when you deal with your distributions. I have a list of roads here. I mean, St. John you can use as a target. And any way that you stick that device on the target, the roads in St. John are in a state of disrepair. And I mean, from canvassing the constituency, from living in the constituency, I can say without fail that there's some of the roads that have not been repaired for more than 50 years. And it is unfortunate that with the type of MPs, because I would be misleading the House if I said representative that we had in St. John, would allow the roads in St. John to be in the state that they currently exist in. In Ashford, we have a classical example of what would be known as a dirt track. And every single time, and especially now that we're into the hurricane season, I have grave concerns about the residents who reside in Ashford, Tenantry, in St. John. In Stuart Hill, we have, as you would have mentioned during the campaign, we have potholes in Stuart Hill, St. John. And I'm asking the Honourable Member to probably do a visit to St. John to see what I'm talking about. The road at Foster Hall is one of the main roads used by the tour buses on this island on a daily basis going towards St. John Parish Church. And when you travel on the road in Foster Hall, it is almost as if you're in a roller coaster. It is really quite bad. In Martins Bay, we have one of two main eateries in St. John that is frequented on a weekly basis by residents from all over the country, including tourists. And the road in Martinez Bay, again, is absolutely horrible. Welch Village, another area that, like I said, it is probably 50 years ago that the roads were done in Welch Village. And my concern now is that in the rainy season, there's a distinct possibility that residents can be cut off because of this road that is on the verge of collapsing. In Sealy Hall in St. John, similar thing obtains. We have a situation where the road turns into a river. So you could understand that, like I said, I believe that my constituency is absolutely the worst as it relates to the road network in this country. Cherry Grove, another community that is really in a state of disrepair. You go through Cherry Grove, the previous government would have cut off a portion of the road and it is just unfinished. And the minister, the honourable member for Christchurch West would have indicated that there's some roads that were left unfinished. Then I'm saying Cherry Grove and the link road between Clifton Hall and Edgecliff is in a similar state. We have Sherburn. Again, there's a link road between Sherburn and Clifton Hall that is now, for all intents and purposes, a one-way road because it is overgrown and the state of the road is really quite bad. College Savannah, another area that the road network is so horrible that, I mean, it is a good thing that we have decided to get rid of the road tax because you really feel as if you're being penalized when you drive on the roads in St. John. At Sergeant Street, similar thing obtains. You have roads that are collapsing, roads that are in a serious state of disrepair. And I would hope that at some point in time, the Honourable Minister will find it necessary to really pay a visit to the road network in St. John. Now, it is true that, similar to the Honourable Member for St. Thomas, the depot at Bath, they were trying to do some remedial work, and it is helping to a certain extent, but it is basically patchwork. So remedial work is not what is necessary for the constituency in St. John. We need to have new roads. We need to have, the Honourable Member mentioned speed humps, the sleeping police. The areas in St. John as well that require that. At Gore Hill, the residents are constantly asking for this to happen at their locale because of the speed that the cycles and the cars traverse this particular area. Here in St. John, the road was started maybe about 5-7 years ago, and right now it is on pause. And I'm getting complaints on a regular basis, and I know that those complaints in St. John will multiply tenfold because we're smack into the hurricane season. At Hainsale, at Lovell Road, again, which is adjacent Messiah Street, we also have a major problem with the road network. So this evening, I am asking on behalf of all of those constituents in St. John for some assistance in rectifying the bad state of the roads that we have in St. John. Madam Chair, I'm obliged.
Honourable Member for St. James South.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to applaud my colleague in Christchurch West for the new spirit of compassion and the spirit of diligence that he's bringing to his ministry in order to give Barbadians a change in what they've been experiencing for so long, the extremely bad roads in this country. I noticed that even the leader of the opposition has not been backward in putting forward the number of roads he would like to see done. And I want to appeal to my colleague as well about some of the roads that we have in St. James South. There are a number of them, and I recognize that he will not be able to do a lot of them one time. He might only be able to do one. I certainly have roads in Husbands and Prior Park, as well as over in Wanstead that would need attention, as well as we have some drainage issues in Oxners and West Terrace, etc., Durance that we would need to see done. But if there is one road one road that we do in St. James South. It is a track that we have endurance that when I first encountered it, anyone encountering this situation will be moved with compassion for the people who live on this track. There's no established road there, but there are at least 8 to 9 houses, and it goes up a hill, Madam Chair. And it is so bad at one point with the jagged rocks. And on this road lives a family that has a child who is physically challenged. And from the time she was a child going to school, the special bus used to have to come up this road to get this child to take her to school. But after a number of attempts where the condition of the road was so bad, the driver said, I cannot bring the vehicle up there. It will damage the vehicle and it's expensive to repair. And for years, that child had to be lifted by her father in the mornings and taken down to that bus and brought back up in the evenings. And when the father is on shift work and not available, it is the mother who has to lift that child in that wheelchair and get her down that hill to the bus. And sometimes there have been mishaps where the child would have fallen. Because as the years went by, the child gets older and therefore gets heavier. And I made a commitment to St. James South that one of the first roads I would ask for is one for that child and that family. And this will be of assistance to all the people who live on that road because it is really bad. And therefore, I would be forwarding to my colleague all the necessary information that they can do the investigations, and I'm going to ask him to make that road a priority in his first batch of roads in his roads program, that we can bring relief to this family and that we can provide for a young citizen of Barbados, physically challenged, a road that will allow her to get to and from school with ease and to send a message to her that everyone in Barbados matters and Barbados will and must work for everyone under the Barbados Labour Party.
Honourable Member for St. Michael South Central.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And let me first say that it is a pleasure to be addressing you in your new role for the first time in this honorable House. I will speak very briefly, first to say to my colleague, the Honourable Member for Christchurch West, that certainly as your colleagues, we are all pleased and encouraged by the pace that you have set as Honourable Minister for Public Works. And I also want to say on behalf of the people of St. Michael South Central and the people who live in the Flagstaff area that we could not be more pleased to have caught the attention of the ministry, because while we were on the campaign trail and while we would have been calling attention to many of the injustices that were allowed to proceed under the last Democratic Labour Party administration, in particular in the 90 extra days, I call them, when they did not have the mandate of the people of Barbados, but they maintained the power of the executive, and as we are all now discovering in our various ministries, took a lot of liberties with the tax dollars of the people of this country. But what I would have called attention to in that period before the people of Barbados withdrew their mandate from that administration and placed their trust in the members of the Barbados Labour Party, is that the Flagstaff Road perhaps is the biggest example, well, probably not the biggest example because there's so many, but a key example of the abuse of influence and the fact that the last administration took those 90 days to try and perpetrate on the people of this country a lot of last-minute election gimmicks. Flagstaff Road had for some time been in need of repair. And it is perhaps one of the longest roads that would have been covered under this program, Madam Chair, as we heard the Honourable Member for Christchurch West describe the various roads under the program. What happened in the days and weeks before the election is that, having allowed the road to languish for many years, the representative at the time decided that in his last-ditch effort to seem as if he were considering the interests of the people of St. Michael South Central, that they would make a last-ditch effort to try and repair the road. And so what happened is that the road was dug up in various places, a curb was put in, and because of how the curb was put in and the fact that they had to dig along the sides of the road, it meant that the road started to cave in, almost collapse on the sides. What also happened was that a lot of the heavy machinery that would have gone through, because there was not enough attention paid at the right time and in the right succession to the works on the road, some of the potholes that already existed became larger. What also happened on Flagstaff Road was that because the work was allowed to languish for so long without completion, a lot of dust was created. We all know that that is one of the most heavily trafficked roads in St. Michael and perhaps in the country. And so the back and forth of the cars coming in and out, stirring up the dust, meant that a lot of the residents started to complain about respiratory issues. The dust was around for a long time. They did not know and did not hear, certainly from the neither from the responsible minister nor the responsible MP, about when they would get some resolution to the matter. And it came to our attention that one of the reasons that the road was allowed to languish for so long had to do with the fact that the then administration would have made commitments to the company undertaking the works, financial commitments that they were in no position to meet. And of course, if somebody is working out of the goodness of their heart on a promise and a whim for so long, there comes a time when people will down tools and say, well, you're taking a 6 for 9. Enough is enough. And so that is what happened in Flagstaff. It is perhaps one of the worst examples of poor public financial management by the last Democratic Labour Party administration. How can you, in the days and weeks before an election, inconvenience the people that you are sworn to serve in order to try and secure your place in this honourable house? Well, as you look around, you will notice that that bid was unsuccessful. But at the same time, we have to make sure that the way that we approach the business of government and the work that we do on behalf of the people of this country has more to do with them and their well-being than it has to do with ours. And so I am happy to hear that Flagstaff Road will see completion. I am happy to know as well that those residents who were promised, again as another election bid and election gimmick, to have natural gas put in some years ago, will finally see that promise fulfilled, not under the administration that promised it, but under this Barbados Labour Party administration. I will not take much time, but I do simply want to close by saying that the people of Barbados have commented over the last 4 weeks about the pace of work and business of this administration. And some have even questioned the extent to which we will be able to keep it up. And I want to say simply this. And I said these words in this Honourable House some weeks ago. It is that this is what the work of government looks like. I think that over the last 10 years, we have forgotten that we were elected, a government is elected by its people to serve. A government is elected by its people to work. And I want us to shake off what we would have become accustomed to over the last 10 years and understand that this Barbados Labour Party administration and this government led by the Honourable Prime Minister is here not just to look busy, but to get the work of the people done, because that has always been the tradition of this Barbados Labour Party. And it is to get the work of the people done with care and with consideration and with good old-fashioned common sense and with discipline, to show that in the matters of public financial management, we have come here to discuss simply and to rectify simply an error that was made under the last administration. But we have come to discuss it in the full glare of consideration of the people, because there is no business that is too small that it does not relate to or concern, or that cannot be held up to the public scrutiny of Barbadians. And so I just want to remind, through you, Madam Chair, the people of Barbados, that this is in fact what government looks like. And we are pleased to be able to do the work of the people with their strong and committed mandate. And with those few words, Madam Chair, I thank you.
Honourable Member for Christchurch West Central.
First of all, let me congratulate my colleague, my friend, the Honourable Member for Christchurch West. I wanted to congratulate him, first of all, to put a plug on an idiosyncrasy of the last administration, one of which was saw $7 million fund from the Latin America, also known as CAF, and a fund that was sitting in Barbados, probably somewhere in the stratosphere. But Madam Chair, I often wonder, when these things happen, how can we have $7 million and not utilize it? I will be minded that it may be a case where the political boogeyman may not be able to get piece of the pie. But whatever the reason is, Madam Chair, I'm saying that the money that is for the country and for the people of this country should be used and used to good effect. And I am thankful that the Honourable Member for Christchurch West has moved with alacrity to ensure that Barbadians, especially people of Christchurch West Central, no longer drive on the left-hand side of the road. They no longer have to drive on what's left of the road. They can drive on the left-hand side of the road. And I am glad that he has given Barbadians the assurance that we can now drive with confidence on the left-hand side of the road. And although it took the better part of 4 weeks to do something which the last administration could have easily done within 10 years, but we know what they did in 10 years. I mean, it's not necromancy by any stretch of imagination, but what we see here today is nothing short of magical. And I don't want to digress, Mr. Speaker, but over the last couple of weeks, we came with Madam Chair, sorry, we came with a mini budget. Something near series. We had fearmongers who say that it would never work. They say that, and the shenanigans too, that the budget was a bitter pill. But you know, we have to remind them, as a pharmacist for over 20 years, I can say one of the things about bitter pill is that it may be bitter at first, but a bittersweet pill is sweet at the end. And I am saying we had to plug the hemorrhage, stop it. But in the end, Madam Chair, in the next couple of years, Barbadians will reap the rewards because there must be a rescuing effort, and that's what we seek to do. A couple of weeks ago, the rebuilding and restoration will come in the next couple of months. And I have full confidence in the members of this honorable chamber, this august chamber, that we will do everything. And none better than my good friend, the right honorable member for Christchurch West. And I'm saying that when he's doing all the roads, Christchurch West Central, who kisses his constituency, maybe in an intimate way too, but I don't want him to leave out the good people of Christchurch West Central, of course. Those of Browns Road in Sergeant's Village, right side of your constituency, the honorable member and minister. Those in First Avenue, Vauxhall, Second Avenue, Vauxhall, those in Kendall Hill. We have persons in Silver Hill. We have the roads in Silver Hill. Madam Chair, if you were to take a drive in Silver Hill, you would have to change all the tires in your caravan then. And those persons in Maxwell Plains who complain bitterly, Forest Land, another concern for the good people. Gall Hill and Gall Hill Main Road, and there's a main artery that takes the van route, and it goes all the way up Newton and straight to town. And this is a road that is used every day. Those in Green Hill and Green Hill Drive. Madam Chair, the people of this country have given us a responsibility. They have given us a responsibility to govern and to govern fairly. As the Member of Parliament for Christchurch West indicate, his measure will include every single, it will have a holistic approach. It wouldn't be politically motivated. It wouldn't have a bias to it. We are all Barbadians and we are all in this Barbados together. And so, he has given us the assurance today that he will give a look into every single constituency. There are 30. So you have to start with 30 roads and one in each constituency. That is the promise he has made this honorable house. And I'm saying to him, the people of Christchurch West Central, they are watching with eagle eyes. And I'm here as their vehicle and their mouthpiece to ensure that justice is served not only to the people of Christchurch West Central, but to the entire Barbados. And I know the honorable member will do just that. And I trust, Mr. Speaker, that in the not too distant future, Madam Chair, sorry, that in the not too distant future, we will see the construction work put into play, where Barbadians will once again, as I say, drive on the left of the road. We in Barbados, we in this Barbados Liberal Party will ensure that we don't only talk the talk for the people of this country, but that we do the do as well. Madam Chair, I thank you.
Honourable Member for St. Lucie.
Madam Chair, I rise today to support this supplementary as the minister within the Ministry of Transport Works and Maintenance. The Honourable Minister, member for Christchurch West, has outlined exactly what this supplementary is all about. And I just want to support, I want to add a couple of things, make a couple to take note. I've taken note of a number of things. As we peruse the document before us, Madam Chair, we see that this CAF loan agreement was signed on November 30th, 2015. 2015, some 3 years, close to 3 years ago. And as we reviewed in the ministry the report on the works, we recognize that the majority of the roads, 80% of them were listed. 70% of them, let me correct myself, started in January 2018. Mere weeks before the dissolution of Parliament in this country before general election. As a matter of fact, it probably gets even worse. One of the roads was started on April 16th, just a mere 11 days before the general election date was called. And it goes down even further, Madam Chair, that on April 30th, 3 days after the general election was announced, another one started. And I say that simply to say this. We cannot, as a government, and we have set the pace bright and early, we cannot bring any tricks and so on to the people of this country. Because what we see demonstrated in this report that we reviewed in the ministry is that people in Barbados were taken for granted. Because you believe that having done nothing for some 2 years or more, that at the very last minute, within a couple of weeks, you could come and fool people by starting various roads. Let me say that I am happy that the roads have been started, and we in the ministry have indicated clearly that the roads will be completed. And we want Barbados to know that it is business, we mean business, within this administration. Now, I have had the opportunity to visit some of the areas, or a couple of constituencies 2 weeks ago. We went to White Hill, we went to Dark Hole, we went to Rock Hall, we went to a number of areas in the Scotland District area. And what we have seen is a very, very sad story, a sad tale of neglect. We have heard today, I heard the Honourable Member for St. Michael West, I heard the Honourable Member for St. Thomas and St. John and St. James South speak about the conditions, the road conditions in their respective constituencies. I want to commit to honourable members in this house today that as minister within the ministry, we will endeavor, my colleague and I, the honourable member for Christchurch West, we will endeavor to visit wherever possible as many of the roads that you have mentioned and some that have not even yet been mentioned, to see firsthand what we are dealing with. Now, we cannot promise to do all roads, and I know that you do not expect that. But we will bring some relief to the people of Barbados, because we believe that roads must not be a political football. In a few days' time, the road tax will be abolished. But I speak, Madam Chairman, from the standpoint as well that when the last administration came into office, one of the first measures they took in the first budget was to increase road tax tremendously. And with persons paying more road tax, the roads got worse. We will abolish the road tax and fix the roads. Barbadians are entitled to it. Roads, proper roads speaks of safety for all. Safety for all. The former member of parliament for St. Lucie indicated that potholes save lives. With a mentality like that, well, they can understand why they didn't fix the roads, because they believe that the potholes would save lives. Madam Chair, Madam Chair, I want to say in this contribution, it is very, very important that we have safe roads to travel on. We are a tourist-oriented country. We depend somewhat on tourism. And I am appalled that when tourists come to Barbados and they're traveling as far north as my constituency, from Crab Hill Police Station across, going towards Archers Bay and Salmons, the worst road network. When you get to the point of Bourbon, the connecting road to Swampy Town, virtually a cat road. If they go to River Bay or they're coming around from North Point and want to get east, to go towards Cove Bay, to make the shortcut towards through Spring Garden. Spring Garden now is almost, you cannot go across that road. And if we as a tourist society, with persons coming from all over the world and traveling, and want to see Barbados, and then they are confronted with some of the worst roads that there ever was. And this government has undertaken to fix, because this loan will be to complete these roads. And we also speak, I heard the Honourable Member for St. Thomas speaking about equipment. This government has moved with alacrity, and this ministry is moving to get equipment for the depots, because we do not necessarily need to wait on central government or loans to do everything. But if the depots had the equipment to fix the roads, it would save us. If the depots had the equipment to maintain the roads, that would be a great help, and that is what this government we heard it in the mini budget by the Prime Minister a few weeks ago. That equipment will be given to this ministry to assist in fixing the road network across Barbados. And we are grateful for that, and we can assure members, we can assure all Barbadians today that we will work and we will do our very best to improve the situation as it presently stands now within this country. I want to assure you that this ministry is working, and I want the honourable members of this House, including the honourable leader of the opposition, to understand and to know that we as a ministry, we will not be partisan in our approach. We are about Barbados. It is about Barbados, not what a party feels. It is about Barbados, and that is how this government will operate. And we will help, and we will do our very best where need arises. We will fix, because Barbadians demand that of us alone by the mandate that they have given us as a government. And we commit to that. Madam Chair, I am obliged to you.
Honourable Member for St. Philip South.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise this afternoon to lend my support to this supplementary brought before this honourable chamber by the honourable member for Christchurch West. Madam Chair, I in principle agree that this supplementary will be to the benefit of all constituencies in Barbados, but particularly those that are with roads that were started as part of a crash program coming up to the last election. Madam Chair, I want to speak a different language with regard to roads and road repairs in Barbados. I think that in a 21st century existence, we need to be cognizant of the fact that roads and road repairs in Barbados must have a strategic planning protocol. And when I say that, I speak to the utility providers being part of that strategic planning protocol. I take, for example,
in your constituency in St. Philip North, Madam Chair, where most of the crash programs took place. Now, right there on Merrick's Road, you had a road completely paved and then had to be dug up. But if there were proper planning, then that could have been avoided. Madam Chair, Barbados cannot find itself in a position where we are wasting money, where we are not efficient, where we spend simply because we can find the money to spend and that the people of Barbados will bear the cost through taxation. And so even though I support the supplementary, I want to speak to the future. And I want to say that when we look at road repairs in Barbados, and indeed the development of new roads, that a protocol is established. Honourable Member for Christchurch West, I want you to take my comments on board. And this is simply because I have seen where we had great opportunities to do better in this country, and perhaps save a lot of money too. And let me take you back to the time when what was called the Tom Adams Highway was conceived. That with the rampant amount of criticism that took place in Barbados, we failed at the time to develop what ought to have been a 4, possibly 6-lane highway. Because you had criticisms of epic nonsense, where we were even accused of wanting to create a highway where planes can land for the transit of drugs. And I think, Madam Chair, that because of the unnecessary and unwanted criticism that takes place whenever we seek to do things that are developmental and for the better of the country, politics overrides common sense. And therefore, I strongly believe that our future is right, certainly with the aggression and the approach of the Honourable Member for Christchurch West, and with the hard work and commitment and never-ending energy of our Honourable Prime Minister. But if I were to become a little parochial this evening, I want to remind the Honourable Member for Christchurch West that when he resumes work at Long Bay, that there is a culvert on the main artery from Beulah to Long Bay that has been open for quite a while and is quite dangerous. And that as we get to the rainy season, that area is completely flooded out, and people can very well miss and drop in there. And I pray to God that it doesn't happen, because somebody could be seriously hurt. Moreover, if a transport board bus drops in, or a minibus, or any other vehicle, we can have unnecessary tragedy. Madam Chair, you and I share the boundary at Beulah, and we have been exposed to and would have seen several accidents taking place there. And I think the time has come where we look at that forecross to perhaps consider putting in a roundabout where we can protect the people who traverse that area and avoid the amount of accidents that are taking place there. Equally, we should look at Crane to Union. There's another forecross, Crane to Union, Crane to Sam Lars Castle, where several accidents take place there. I think the time is upon us now that we have to move at pace to address those accidents that are taking place.
at these two major four crosses in St. Philip. One totally in St. Philip South and the other borders St. Philip South and St. Philip North. I also want to speak a little bit about the construction of roads. We have several people in Barbados who may be wheelchair bound. We all know that due to our eating habits and our lifestyles, that we have a high number of persons in Barbados with NCDs. And a person losing a limb has to make a serious adjustment, but should not be deprived of the opportunity to go out and to enjoy life as normal as that person possibly can. And we know that with technology and the type of motorized wheelchairs that are available, people can actually get around. But if we don't consider adding proper sidewalks where possible and as far as possible, especially near communities and developments, so that we can facilitate those people who we refer to as the differently able, or the differently able community, that we will go a long way in making sure that they can have a comfortable and seamless life by having sidewalks added in addition to making sure the utilities providers are on board. And that we have to also be cognizant of the fact that communities or developments that take place, main arteries, that speed humps are added at the inception and at the development point. And I speak of a classical example. If you're going from 6 Roads to Sterling, or coming from Sterling to 6 Roads, that because of the hive of activity that takes place at 6 Roads between Emerald City Supermarket, Chauffette, and the gas station, people tend to divert through Emerald Park East. And so the speed at which they go through Emerald Park East, it has become a hazard, a really serious hazard to the lives of the people who live in Emerald Park East.
Honourable Member, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm speaking for you and I thought you would have been...
You're so correct.
Thought you would have been a little more accommodating. But if you were to consider Emerald Park East, Honourable Member for Christchurch West, so that when we look to do new developments in Barbados, we consider putting in the speed humps at the same time when they are close to main arteries. Because Barbadians have a habit, it is our culture, of taking shortcuts to beat traffic. And that has been taking place there. I don't like it. I personally would like to have it addressed in the shortest of time. I know that the owner of Emerald City Supermarket got in his humps, so you can't use that as a shortcut anymore. And I would like to think that we can get it right as well. And we also desperately need a traffic mirror in that Emerald Park East as well, so that, and all falls to the Honourable Member for Christchurch West. Which one? The Minister in the Ministry, the Honourable Member for St. Lucie. We need to get that mirror there because that too is also a dangerous junction, and I want to have it addressed. There are several other roads in St. Philip South, and because you and I share a common board, and the Honourable Member for St. Philip West as well, when we get to St. Martin's or Harlington, we need really to come together in making sure that we get the Honourable Member for Christchurch West to work with us and bring in some comfort and relief to the people of St. Philip. And I say of St. Philip because I think we live and work as one people in what we call the Republic. And even though my voice in this honourable chamber is on behalf of the people of St. Philip South, it would be remiss of me if I didn't speak to the other two constituencies, because we share common responsibility, but also common usage of the roads that bind us together. I'm obliged to you, Madam Chair.
Honourable Member for St. Michael West Central.
So I want to take this opportunity to congratulate you on your elevation to the chairman of committees, and I wish you every success. Madam Chair, I join this debate, and I would also like to congratulate the honourable member for Christchurch West for his new thinking and his new approach in terms of managing his ministry. The one thing that struck me was when he introduced in his presentation this afternoon the rationale and the role that his ministry will be playing in respect of infrastructural development. And when I say infrastructural development, Madam Chair, I'm speaking to the fact that he has now made it clear that he will seek wherever possible to ensure that there is provision for natural gas and obviously for the laying of water mains. I consider this to be new thinking good ground, and I wish him very well. The reality in Barbados is that we have, in particular with new road works coming on stream, there's always been this approach whereby you come in, you fix the road, and you leave it. And then a couple of months or even a couple of weeks later, you will see, for example, the road being dug up by some agency doing some remedial works or installing new water mains or natural gas facilities. And these things are important for people, but it's equally important for us, if we're going to spend money as a country, not to spend money twice or three times over. And that's why I said that the thinking from the honourable member for Christchurch West must be applauded. The situation with water mains, for example, you have some old cast iron mains, and I believe they're in excess of 100 years old. And yes, over time we will have to take those out. But it's equally important that we remember when we're getting into these projects, it's best that we spend the money once and not twice and three times over. And I think that's, and obviously because of his commercial background and training, I think that will go a long way. In respect of the road infrastructure in Barbados, yes, we accept for the last 10 years, it's been broken, and we know it. We have a situation where roads have not been repaired, highways are broken, and secondary roads, you know, they leave a lot to be desired. So I think with the new strategy and the new approach in terms of managing the road infrastructure, I think we will get a greater bang for our buck. In respect of the strain that is posed, you have strain on the transport board buses, the private sector, we call the PSVs, private sector vehicles, where they have had to go through a lot of wear and tear, a lot of maintenance costs. So I think with this new approach, it would also help the transport board to lower their maintenance costs, as well as the private sector vehicle operators. I also, and I agree with the honourable member for Lucy, regarding the depot funding. I think it is necessary. As a candidate, I used to go to the depot. I also had to use other resources to get roads done in the constituency. I recall even an incumbent MP trying to lay claim to a road that he didn't fix, so he didn't have a hand in. But because we had to write the ministry and we keep going to the depot, we were able to get those things done. So I honestly think that if we can, I know it will take time based on what is before us as a country, but I think over time, I think our approach to managing the depot, I think, needs to be looked at. If we can look at that, I think it will help us down the road with a lot of what I call the subsidiary and routine maintenance works. And I know that will be left in the capable hands of the minister. I too, when I reviewed the 2018-29 estimates, I saw a provision in there for the CAR funding for roads, and I believe it was $7 million at program 510, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure the status of that, if that too was utilized before the last election, but I'm sure that if it hasn't, then we will have some more opportunities for improved road network. I would also want to, in the same vein, perhaps ask the honourable member for Christchurch West, if it were at all possible, to look and see if perhaps it wouldn't be even more economical, even more efficient to look at the laying of power lines underground. I know that's not your responsibility, but if it's something that we can look at, because we're in a hurricane belt. And there are some developments when they come on stream that they have the utilities underground. And I would think the time has come for us to look at it. I'm not saying we have to commit to it now, because we have a lot of work to do as a government and we have to get our priorities in order. But it is something that I long wondered why we shouldn't do, particularly with us being in the hurricane belt. I would like to ask the minister, and when he gets time, I'll be delighted to walk the constituency of St. Michael West Central with him, because the constituents also need some work doing down there. And for the last 10 years, to be honest with you, other than about three roads that I've been able to get done for them through other means, I would like to encourage the minister and the minister in the ministry as well, the honourable member for St. Lucie, to walk with me to just highlight some of the issues. I do not believe we can get everything done, and I'm not asking for everything to be done because of where we are right now, but certainly over time there are some roads and bridges that we have to pay attention to. And on the subject of bridges, Madam Chair, we have to look at the issue of the Denton Road Bridge. It is an issue that I highlighted as a candidate. It was an issue that I highlighted during the last election campaign. And it is an issue that we need to look at. That road at Denton, the bridge at Denton Road, Grisette's, not too far from the Grisette's Resource Center, is in dire need of urgent repair. You have a lot of heavy-duty vehicles traversing. You also have the Transport Board PSVs as well. And it's only a matter of time before that bridge is compromised. So I would like to ask the honourable member for Christchurch West, when he gets the chance, to have a look at it. There should be documentation on file, because I've written to the ministry, not during your tenure, sir, but as a candidate when I was seeking to get here, and of course it went unnoticed. So I would like to ask you to look at that, and in that same area, Lattice Lane and Trellis Walk, those areas really need some urgent attention. I know there's a provision in the estimates, I believe it's at 514, program 514, I believe it's over $840,000. I know it probably is not enough. I don't know if they spent it all in the last administration. But if at all possible, and you can find some funding to assist us, I'll be grateful, and certainly the residents of Lattice Lane and Denton Road and Trellis will be grateful to you, sir. The issue, again, I know that there will be a lot of requests for roads, but I would also like some attention to be paid to the roads at Upper Wayville and Lower Wayville. We had a situation, we were able to get Jackman Road, Oda Road done before the change of government, but I really think that that area needs some urgent attention, and if at all possible we can get those roads done, I'll be grateful. Madam Chair, the other issue has to do with the tenantry roads, and there are a lot of areas in Barbados and certainly within St. Michael West Central where you don't have paved roads, and it is a major issue. If you go down to St. Stephen's, for example, Clevedale Road area, and go into Plumtree Road, you look there and you see what the residents have to endure, especially when it rains. They have sometimes to get to church, you have to change out your shoes. The same applies if you want to go to work. And I know that it is not only in St. Michael West Central, but there are some areas within St. Michael, I dare say, that we're really going to have to start looking at. And I know, again, the provision for tenantry roads. The provision is, when I check the 2018-29 estimates, the provision is very low. I mean, I was shocked to see that a government that talked about the fact that it cared about people and so on would have gone into that program. And when you look at the tenantry road program for 9.5, I think is, you had a meager $682,000. And you go through St. Michael, all through St. Michael. I mean, it can't fix every road. I know we can't fix every road in one go, but certainly there are some areas that need roads, and we need to start looking at those areas. and particularly in St. Michael West Central, I'd like to ask the minister when he gets a chance to look at those areas so we can improve the tenantry roads, etc. I will also make the point that the service delivery will matter. And I'm mindful and I'm happy because of the minister's commercial background, and I know he understands the issue of service delivery. And for too long, I believe it has afflicted us. As a candidate seeking to represent people in St. Michael West Central, I saw it firsthand, where you particularly could not get anything done, and that people would put you on the back foot and they would not wish to engage you. Not recognizing it's not for me as an honorable member of St. Michael West Central or aspiring to be an honorable member of St. Michael West Central at the time, but because I was in the vanguard fighting for those people who have now sent me to Parliament to represent their interests before I got to Parliament. And I really and truly believe that we have to really focus on this issue of service delivery. And if we can get our service delivery right, if we can fix, obviously get the appropriate funding for the depot, particularly Richmond, I think it would help improve our program. So I am absolutely delighted. I will not delay the chamber on Julie, but I'm absolutely delighted. I'm happy with your thinking, honorable member for Christchurch West, and I would like to, wherever possible, seek your assistance. And one final point, the issue of flooding in the constituency. I know it falls under, I believe, your ministry, sir, and that is something that has really caused us a lot of grief in St. Michael West Central as well. I'll have a quick chat with the honorable minister, honorable member, to look at an area, for example, Belfield, where the flooding is has gone to the extent now is undermining the foundation of many homes. So I want us to have a look at that. But I have every confidence in the minister and the ministry as well for them to do an outstanding job. I know that Barbadians will be very happy after having to undergo a little bit of adjustment to see the roads being done. But one thing I can say about the people of St. Michael West Central, no issue paying taxes as long as at the end of the day they see things being done. And I have every confidence in this government and the minister to ensure that those things are done and that relief is brought to the residents of St. Michael West Central. And Madam Chair, I much obliged.
Honourable member for St. Michael Southeast.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise to lend my voice and certainly my support to this particular supplementary in the sum of $7 million in respect of roads under the Road Rehabilitation CAF Fund. The Honourable Minister who introduced the supplementary, I am pleased to note that the Honourable Member for Christchurch West has indicated that several of the roads identified that the work had already been started, and that he has given the undertaking to this chamber and certainly to Barbadians that he will endeavour to complete the works which had been started under previous administration. I start there, Madam Speaker, Madam Chair, because I recall under the last administration there were several road works that had been budgeted by a Barbados Labour Party administration in the estimates. And on coming to office, the last administration took the opportunity to divert the resources that had been committed under the Barbados Labour Party administration to projects where there were their Democratic Labour Party members who were holding specific seats in this chamber. The constituency of St. Michael Southeast suffered under the Democratic Labour Party administration in that respect, in particular the roads at Lower Bernice in Phase 1 and Phase 2, and also Salters Tenantry Road and Plumtree Road. Both projects had been budgeted by the Barbados Labour Party but were subsequently abandoned. I recall when I was in the other place, I certainly on several occasions took the opportunity to urge members to accelerate the process to complete the road works there. Fortunately, before the end of the first term in that chamber, the roadworks were completed before 2013. However, in respect of Salters Tenantry Road, it was only just before the last election that roadworks had actually been started in that area. And I note that it doesn't fall under this particular project. I believe it was under the Mill and Pave project that it was started. But the concern that I have is that the residents in that particular community had suffered for several years where they were promised that the road would have been completed, and then came to find that almost 10 years later, not a bit of road works had been started or even completed in the community. Just before the election, there was a mad panic and a rush, just like in the area of Flagstaff, to accelerate roadworks in the area. And members of the constituency were promised that roadworks would be completed. Unfortunately, members who are on the other side started to campaign in the last election that the contractor had run out of the funds to be able to complete the roadworks, when in truth and in fact, Madam Chair, it was in fact that the last administration had failed to pay the contractor to be able to complete the work. And I believe that these are some of the reasons why the electorate of Barbados has frowned upon administrators in governance in this country, promising things to the electorate and then disappointing them, or even at the last minute trying to seek to purchase a vote by the optics and the mirrors, by trying to make people believe that something is happening. And I think that they have sent a resounding message to certainly politicians across the political divide that such activity and course of conduct will not be contemplated or either considered by the electorate in future elections. I too am happy that the Honourable Minister has indicated he will complete these works, but I hope that he can certainly revisit under the Mill and Pave program the completion of the roads at Salters Tenantry Road and indeed Plumtree Road. Those roads in particular are heavily traversed. Several members, I'm sure in here, traverse those roads in order to get to other destinations in St. George and St. Michael and even in Christchurch. And it has become a source of concern for residents who have had their vehicles damaged as a result of the poor construction of the road. But in particular, what more concerns me is the fact that there are several elderly residents in the community who, because of the large potholes and the incomplete nature of the work, are having difficulty traversing the road to and from their homes. It is an eyesore to the residents, and this, as I said, through you, Madam Chair, to the Honourable Member for Christchurch West, I would hope that we would be able to find the resources to complete the works in that particular area and to ensure and to give the residents the confidence that the Barbados Labour Party has not forgotten those residents who would have supported us. Now, I can list, like other members of this chamber, several roads in St. Michael's Southeast that are in dire need of repair. But I will not seek to do so because I believe that the time has now come for us to rise in these debates to a level where we appreciate where we are as a country. We are in discussions with the International Monetary Fund. We know that there are a number of negotiations that the last administration entered into where they dropped the ball, and we are now having in just under 4 weeks or just going 4 weeks to have to basically assure a number of the persons who would have loaned us money in the past that the Barbados Labour Party is taking charge of the Barbados economy and that we will implement a lot of the funding that had been allocated to us across the various ministries. With that said, I would ask through you, Madam Chair, that the Honourable Minister, as he has said to us, I think on the asides, that he would want from each member, even the member for St. Michael West, because he is in this place because of members of the Barbados Labour Party voting for him as well. And the one thing the members of the Barbados Labour Party will not do is forget the members, either the member for St. Michael West or the people of St. Michael West who got him here. And I think that the advice given by the member for Christchurch West to all of our members that we need to prioritize in each constituency the nature of the works which are urgent, the nature of the works that can wait a few more months or a few more years, and those that we can do long term, I think would be wise advice to members, because we have a prime opportunity at this juncture of our history, having created history in respect of a landslide victory, to be able to make a difference and not to fall into the trap of only fixing constituency roads where there are ministers of government or friends of ministers, but rather taking an approach which allows the minister to be able to have a thorough investigation of where the greatest needs are. I think the people of Barbados have given us the mandate to do that, and that is something that all of us across the ministries must reflect on over the course of the next few weeks and months. And I'm sure the advisors in the Ministry of Finance and certainly others who are advising this administration would want us to be prudent in the way in which we approach the issue of roads and transportation in this country, and certainly in respect of housing. So I do believe that while we all have our individual wish lists, I have roads in Golden Rock that have not been touched from when my father was a representative for St. Michael's Southeast. And there are several areas across the constituency which are in dire need of repair. But I do appreciate that resources are limited. And given that this particular CAF fund was entered into in 2015, and that we've seen that this last administration has lagged in respect of being able to access the funds and be able to disburse the funds to ensure that roads were completed across the network, I think all of us must do the due diligence and ensure in our respective constituencies that we feed the necessary information to the minister, ensure that he perhaps does a site visit with each of us at the opportune time for him, and to make sure that we then speak to our constituents so that they understand that we are dealing with the mission critical areas first and foremost, and that we are understanding and appreciating that while they have waited long, that we understand that it is no longer business as usual in the Barbados Labour Party or in governance in this country. I want to also ask the Honourable Minister about the number of requests that have no doubt come in the last 10 years in particular in relation to damage to vehicles. Because I've heard of all the issues of the suspension being damaged and all of the issues as a result of the potholes, which the last Prime Minister wanted to describe as transient inconveniences to not only us, but certainly to the visitors to this country. And it does concern me that, you know, we need to hear more on this, because I think it is a genuine concern that our road users have. Many people have complained they were paying the road tax. Obviously, we have eased that. But I think there is a reality that we must face, that people have been contributing and they expect better in respect of our roads, and if there is damage to their vehicles, particularly if they have been highlighting that certain roads are urgent, that we as an administration speak to these issues so that the electorate actually understands and appreciates what is the process for making a complaint and what redress there is available to them in the event that they do make a complaint. One of the lessons we have learned is that we have to level with the electorate in respect of process and procedure. And I think that, again, that time has come for us to certainly be on the front line as opposed to waiting until the problems actually begin to surface.
Honourable Member, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, the other thing I would want to invite the Honourable Minister to consider as well is that hurricane season is approaching. And I would hope that once this supplementary is approved today, that we are in a position to accelerate the road works that are on the table, but also certainly to look at the issue of drainage. I believe this administration has tagged on to the ministry the words maintenance, and I think that is particularly telling in respect of the lack of maintenance that has taken place over the course of the last few years in relation to not just roads, but I believe across the entire infrastructure of Barbados. And I would hope that an aggressive maintenance program is implemented by the ministry to ensure that, again, once issues are identified in relation to drainage and flooding, that we are able to act quickly in terms of working with the various ministries to ensure that any difficulties that are likely to arise as a result of a hurricane or even a storm and severe flooding, that we are able to react promptly to avoid the dislocation of several families across the country. These things, Madam Chair, and how we have gotten here is a reflection of how government has been managed over the course of the past few years. And I believe that the Barbados Labour Party has demonstrated to the electorate that in just 4 weeks we have hit the ground running. We are being led by a political leader and certainly Prime Minister of Barbados, who has been holding our hands not only in opposition but has been doing so from government and making sure that across ministries that we identify what the problems are, but also that we collectively find solutions to the problems. And I think that by the appointment even of this current minister, and certainly the minister in the ministry as well that supports him, I think it is a reflection that she has confidence in both of them, because the Honourable Minister for a member for Christchurch West, and I'm wrapping up, ma'am, I see you giving me the eye. The Honourable Member for Christchurch West has held several positions in this chamber, certainly. I don't believe that we're going to hear that licenses are being given out in his ministry on the side. I don't believe that we're going to be hearing that contracts are being issued and he's getting kickbacks. And similarly, I expect that the Honourable Member for St. Lucie is going to get the work done, and he will not be spending time on social media. So I believe that we have within these two ministers reputable persons who will get the job done, and they have shown in just these 4 weeks by bringing this supplementary that they have highlighted where the problems are and that they have started to address the problems by rectifying this problem as a matter of urgency. With that, Madam Chair, I support the resolution, and with that, I'm obliged.
Honourable Member for, Honourable Member for St. George North.
Yes. Madam Chair, I would just like to compliment the Minister as well for the job that he has to do. It is indeed a tough task to ask the Minister to undo 10 years of neglect by the Democratic Labour Party. And of course, and the reason why he said 10 years of neglect is here for all to see, because I was in this ministry up to 2007, the end of 2007, and at that time we were doing, over $150 million in road works. In those years, Madam Chair, we were doing a bolt arrangement with the major contractors to the tune of over $150 million. I'm not sure, based on the current economic condition, if this is permissible, but I know that it is a difficult task the minister has, and a list I noticed coming from all members of this House is really fantastic, and I'm not sure if we will be able to do any of these roads within the next 20 years or so, because in every constituency there are so many roads to be done. Clearly in your constituency, St. Philip, a lot of work have started, but of course more has to be done, a lot has to be done. In my constituency, there are roads that were started, and of course up to 2007, and then they were neglected, they were left undone. We started a road from St. Helens, St. George to Flat Rock, a sidewalk that was left incomplete. And there are several roads that were started that were left undone. And over the last 10 years or so, nothing has been done. And I believe the approach, because the approach that was mentioned by the member for St. Thomas is very important. What we were doing in those days, we were equipping the depots. Every parish has a depot, and the depots were given machinery and material and men to do the work. Unfortunately, over the past 10 years, many of the depots were left without any material, without any machinery, so that even small things like shovels and hoes and so were neglected, bobcats, so that if every depot is given a bobcat and given the tools, at least they're able to maintain the roads. And I would like to see a situation where the depots are given, and they were given a truck, each depot were given a truck, a bobcat, passion trucks, and so on. If these are things that can be done, then the small things will be able to be done by the depots. And of course, in the ministry, they have supervisory at all levels, so that persons are involved in looking after the workers. But it is unfortunate that most of the workers go to work today and have to sit down because they have nothing to do, very little. And, you know, they want to do work because they do real good work. I am saying that the Ministry of Public Works, they have not only expertise the management, the capability, but they do the best work in the country. And we would want to see that this thing, that we go back to the situation where we empower the depots to do the various work. And this would then ease the burden that the minister has, because I do not think he will ever get around to me in St. George. With all the best will in the world, he will not get around to the people in St. Thomas and St. Lucie. But if we have Chance Hall and St. Lucie, given the equipment, they will be able to do the work. They will be able to do the work. And the resources, if you look at the resources that all these roads will take, when I calculated at the end of 2007, in those days, it would have cost us over $500 million to complete most of the roads in Barbados. We still have, Madam Chair, in my constituency, about 4 tenantry roads. And this party, and I want to remind the chamber, that in 1981, when a survey was done of the major roads, tenantry roads across Barbados, it was felt then, and I want the minister to listen to this point, in 1981, it was felt that all tenantry roads would have been completed in 10 years, when the Tenantry Act was passed in 1982. And we wanted to do all the tenantry roads. And we have been set back. We have been set back because we were on the right track. The Barbados Labour Party was on the right track. We were repairing the tenantry roads, we were repairing subsidiary roads, and we were doing things. But the Democratic Labour Party came in and then went astray. They did very little, and they had no thought at all about the tenantry roads. So many tenantry roads are still left undone. And we still have a lot in my constituency that must be done. So that if in 2007 we were looking at $500 million to do roads, what it is today, we don't have the resources. We don't have the resources. I'm not sure if the Ministry of Finance will encourage the bolt arraignment anymore, but we were doing a bolt arraignment with C.O. Williams Construction, with Rayside Construction in those days, to over the tune of $150 million. We were thinking about the expansion of the ABC Highway, and in those days, we were looking at flyovers and everything. But 10 years have been wasted. And we are now in a financial rut that I'm not sure that the resources that we have in these estimates will ever do more than 2 or 3 roads. The member for St. Michael West Central made a point that when you look at the estimate, you have $682,000. What? Now, this is only 1 or 2 roads. You do not have the resources. You do not have the resources. So you definitely need, and the Ministry of Finance and the government must put the minister into resources. You have to look at how you can find finances. Is it the public sector or the private sector? Because the government cannot do all. You have to involve the private sector. You have to involve private finances. You have to go to the capital market and see what arrangements can be made through BOLT, B-O-L-T, and government to fix these roads. Because the member for St. Michael Southeast made a point that compensation will be right against the government. There's so many people who have been asking when the cars drop into the holes and vehicles and so on, burst a tire, an arm, all types of things on the cars have been dismantled because of the bad roads. We have severe bad roads, not only in St. John. I heard the member for St. John talking about the bad roads in St. John, but the bad roads all across Barbados, which will never be fixed within the next 10 years with government finances. And I want to make that point. So we have to look for finances. I'm not sure what arrangement can be made after we go into an IMF agreement. Because with the IMF agreement, the cost of money will be high. And most of these roads cannot be done with your present finances now. We have to be able to look for finances. We have to bring in the private sector to help us. And I believe we have to find a mechanism to help our country get out of this state, because we are in a financial rut. And we have to, the reality is that We cannot find money to do these things, but the private sector has to help. The private sector must be put in a position to, through some mechanism, where they can use their finances and be reimbursed at a later date. But I would like to see the minister bring some novel approach and his experience to bear on how we can get some of these things done, because again, Madam Chair, the list will get longer. The maintenance of bridges, the maintenance of culverts, drainage will get higher. And if you look across Barbados at all the government buildings and all the things that he's responsible for, because he's not only responsible for roads, he's responsible for the government buildings as well. And there are so many that are derelict. There are so many that are in need of maintenance. What do? We cannot push up our hands and surrender. We have to look at novel approaches. We have to look at new approaches to bring to bear how we are going to do these things. It happened in 1981 when Todd looked at the ABC Highway. When we look at in 1994 and 2008, we were looking at new approaches to finances, and I hope that the minister will bring some new approaches to this whole aspect of road maintenance, road repairs, buildings, and of course, the infrastructure that we have. Thank you, Madam.
Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central.
Madam Chair, I rise to support this supplementary, which, as the member for Christchurch West has already indicated, is really not a supplementary, just a misclassification because of the hurried nature that the last administration was seeking to bring these expenditures to the public on the eve of not just the dissolution of Parliament, but certainly the eve of the last general election. Madam Chair, I've listened to my colleagues, and I want to remind this chamber, and certainly through you, Barbados, that we have been on a bad road for the past 10 years. And whilst physically the roads across our constituencies show the extent to which we've been on that bad road, we now have to confront the very nature that we have to rebuild our infrastructure in this country once again to make sure that Barbadians can not just traverse this country, but certainly get to work, to leisure, safely. And so the importance of this measure cannot be understated, Madam Chair, because the extent to which the continuity of policy and the certainty with which we conduct our public policy is going to be important if we are to rebuild the trust of the people of this country. And so I certainly support the member for Christchurch West's position that those roads having already been started, that they should be continued. Because all over this country, Madam Chair, roads are bad. And we cannot, as a government, certainly having been elected, all 30 seats in this honourable chamber, go against the will of the people, one, or two, because of political motivations, seek to deprive those residents in the areas already mentioned by the member for Christchurch West their right as taxpayers to enjoy good infrastructure. And so I am happy to hear that those roads will continue, because having started, we need to make sure that we complete those roads as quickly as possible. I'm also happy to hear, Madam Chair, of the need to make sure that we plan the infrastructure properly. Because for too long, and I think all members will agree, for too long, we spend money and then utilities come in later to put in the very infrastructure that should have been done in the first place. So I'm happy to support this resolution, given the assurance by the honourable member for Christchurch West that the proper planning before we start to build any road in Barbados, that these things are put in place and that considerations are given for that. Now, it would be remiss of me not to, in the spirit of what the submissions have been consistently provided so far, because I support the honourable member for St. Michael South East's assertion that we must prioritize. And in so doing, given that it's only $7 million that we're talking about and some of the monies have already been spent, it's not really $7 million that we have as far as this supplementary is concerned. And so therefore, given that we're already in the hurricane season, Madam Chair, and that we must prioritize, all I would ask the honourable member to give consideration to is that there are people in Watton Terrace, Madam Chair, whoever, when the rain drizzles, flooding occurs, and damage not just to their properties, but certainly to the surrounding neighborhood, and the cost to government is significant. And all the residents in Watton Terrace need, Madam Chair, is basically a trench to connect the wells in the area so that the water can be diverted to the wells, but also, Madam Chair, to some remedial works for the wells in the area that have been choked for years with vegetation and all of the dirt and debris that the flood waters would have brought and filled the wells. That's not going to cost a lot of money, Madam Chair. By my estimation, it's probably about $75,000. But we have to make sure that we can do those things that would alleviate the fears and concerns of the average citizens in this country. And I shall be writing to the Honourable Minister very shortly on that specific matter. There are also a few other things that needs to be addressed, but I think that in the spirit of prioritizing, that is one element that can be quickly done that will certainly bring relief to the residents of Watton, such that before September or October hits, when the rains really start to set in, that we can help to alleviate the concerns of those citizens. Now, from the Ministry of Finance's perspective, I also want to ask the Honourable Member for Christchurch West and the Honourable Member for St. Lucie to please, as your ministry goes about its maintenance of the roads of Barbados, I think it's important that we recognize that we have to do things properly. And for too long, we've just been driving around the country, dropping Barber Green in holes, and then 2 months later, when the rain comes, the Barber Green disappears and the hole gets bigger. Now, every time I see that, Madam Chair, it means that's money being wasted. And so therefore, I'm asking the honourable members to please issue a directive to the staff of your departments to take the time, fix the problem, so that we do not have to repeat this procedure, which costs money. It costs money. And whilst it may just be a few $1,000s in every instance, I was just asking my colleagues, what is the estimate for the number of potholes in Barbados? And nobody seems to be able to come to some reasonable estimate of what it might be, but we all know that there are thousands of potholes across this country. And if it costs a couple thousand to patch these potholes because of the whole process of preparing the bitumen, you have to pay a staff, you have to get fuel for the trucks and all of that, then we must make sure that we do the job properly one time, such that the repair lasts longer, so that we save on these things, so that the maintenance is effective. Now, I know that we've put in for some equipment in terms of the budget so that the ministry can go about its works in a much more efficient manner. And as we do that capital investment, I'm hoping that with a change in policy from the ministry in terms of some of those operational things, that the people of this country will actually start to see a different way of doing things, and that the money that's being spent by its government is being done in a manner that they believe is consistent with their hard-earned wages. Madam Chair, there's a lot of infrastructure that we can have a discussion on in this country. But this supplementary, I fully support. I can assure the members of this House and certainly the public that over the next 5 to 7 years, that our capital works program will be well supported, because it takes infrastructure. It takes infrastructure to run a country. No doubt. It takes infrastructure to run a country. And if Barbados is to achieve first world status, which was our mission, and we were on that road, that right road up until the beginning of 2008, if we are to attain first world status, then our infrastructure must be consistent with that. And it's not just the physical infrastructure, but also some of those soft infrastructures that go along with that. And whilst roads represent the conduit through which much economic activity, Madam Chair, is conducted, because it allows, one, for our school children to get to school, our parents and workers to get to work, our visitors to traverse this country safely. It also allows for the transportation of goods. And if we want to move to a 24/7 economy, then our hard infrastructure must be sound. And we are going to build it back out again very patiently, very methodically. And so therefore, I'm happy to hear that the member for Christchurch West will insist that proper planning before any project is undertaken is put in place, because at this particular point in time, every dollar that we can spend as wisely as we can spend it, Madam Chair, will be the best dollar that we can spend for the future of this country. Madam Chair, I am happy that once again we can demonstrate that we can bring a level of order back to the public finances. And this is an example of how disorder can manifest itself. And whilst this is
Remember, you have 5 minutes.
And whilst this, in the scheme of things, may seem small, the way that you do things, Madam Chair, the way that you do things, and for whom you do that, is fundamentally important. All I wish to add further to this debate, Madam Chair, is that as we move forward, that we ensure that we cost out every element in terms of our road network. Because that cooperative approach between the ministry and the various utilities and the other stakeholders, I think once we're able to do those costings in a collaborative manner, then we will be able to deliver much more for the few $1 million that we have to spend on not just road maintenance, but certainly building roads that will be down to the benefit of all Barbadians. Madam Chair, I'm obliged to you.
Honourable member for St. James North.
Thank you, Madam Chairman of Committees. I rise to not only support the supplementary resolution before this Honourable House, but the concept of the resolution, being that money needs to be spent on road works, on drainage, on maintenance of our infrastructure on the whole. You know, of course, we have 2 weeks ago abolished road taxes in Barbados, but the reality is that millions of dollars went into the Consolidated Fund of Barbados every year on road taxes. Not as much as should have gone in, because a lot of people, we all concede, never used to pay. and therefore we have replaced it by a more efficient tax. But the reality is that a lot of road tax went into the government coffers, consolidated fund, and the general view of a lot of people was that, look, those who paid road tax, we're paying road tax, but yet the roads aren't being repaired. We drive on roads all throughout Barbados. We go into potholes, our cars, engines have problems, tires burst out, and what are we paying road taxes for? So I support here today the concept of the resolution brought by the Honourable Minister of Works and his Minister of State as well, who has both spoken in this debate so far. That money needs to be found to be spent on road repairs in Barbados. I agree with the Honourable Member for St. George North that it can't be done in a piecemeal manner. We're going to, at some stage, have to access loans for comprehensive road repairs. It has to be looked at a macro level, at a holistic level, and not at a piecemeal level. Yes, in the early 1980s, the then Barbados Labour Party administration, led by the Right Honourable Tom Adams, would have brought in the concept of tenantry road repairs, as the Honourable Member for St. George North, who goes far back historically in the party and of course remembers that as well, spoke about, whereby, you know, every road, tenantry road, was to be concreted and paved. That was the vision of a Barbados Labour Party government of previous times. We have been set back tremendously over the last 10 years, where we had a government that they didn't care. I mean, I think 67 or $70 million was voted for in this parliament sometime in 2016 to repair roads, to borrow money, and hardly any were repaired. I mean, they had a program for 6-week repairs, if I remember, sometime last year, and then it stopped. And really, it is appalling and, quite frankly, distressing, Madam Chair, to me as a person who was in opposition on the other side last time, to see that $25 billion was raised from the taxpayers of this country over a 10-year period by the last government, and you don't know where the money went. I mean, that $70 million, $67 million voted for a loan, you don't know where it went, if it went anywhere. Certainly, if the money was not drawn down in any way, commitment fees, large commitment fees were being paid on this, which had to be paid by the taxpayers of Barbados. And the Honourable Prime Minister last week spoke about all the loans that the government had entered into but didn't draw down. And the reality is that millions of dollars in wasted taxpayers' money was paid in commitment fees on all of these loans, including loans to repair roads. And it is sad, really and truly, the incompetence of a government and of, quite frankly, the then Minister of Transport, who seemed more concerned about driving about luxury vehicles. He and the then Minister of the Environment, given by private companies to them, in breach of all concepts and principles of integrity and good governance and public morality. I know, as has been said, that this minister, the Honourable Member for Christchurch West, man, and his Minister of State, two men who I know a long time, men of integrity, won't get into any such malfeasance and bad play such as that. Because, you know, we can't afford to have corrupt practices in these ministries, these works ministries. And I have full confidence that those two honourable members would lead the charge to repair roads in Barbados. Within 6 weeks of becoming a member of Parliament in these chambers, in April 2013, I wrote the then Minister of Public Works a letter and followed it up occasionally, in all about 20 roads in St. James North. And I know each of us here, I mean, we are now, representatives. There's effectively no opposition, no DLP opposition in this parliament, and therefore we're looking after the whole country. We would have done that as a government, even if the DLP had seats, and we're responsible for the whole country. But it's still duty bound to plead for St. James North. There were about 20 roads. And the amazing thing about that, Madam Chair, was that a lot of those roads were in parts of St. James North, in fact, the St. Peter part of St. James North, that used to be supportive of the Democratic Labour Party. And in Aston Hall, in Road View. That, of course, changed fundamentally this election, even though we had done very well, better than previously, even in 2013 in those parts. But in areas which were traditionally supportive of the Dems, nothing done at all to repair any roads. Tremendous drainage problem because St. James North, of course, a coastal constituency, and problems of drainage coming down from the Midlands of Barbados. But you had a government that 3 ministers, Ma'am, as I've said before, told me they weren't going to spend a dollar on St. James North because it didn't support them. And that was the attitude that you had from the last administration. The reality, as you are fully aware, Madam Chair, is that thinking will have no consequence anyway, because in your constituency, as was said by the Honourable Member for St. Philip South, they repaired roads and that didn't help them anyway. You still won by a handsome and overwhelming majority. So that warped thinking really and truly should never present itself in terms of how a government operates for use. But those roads are still unrepaired, the 20 roads, and I would certainly hope and plead with the ministers in the Ministry of Public Works to remember St. James North when we get more money than this 7 million for roads. Some of those roads in Upper Mount Standfast were started before the 2008 election and were not continued. I think the Honourable Leader of Government Business also spoke towards that kind of thinking and inaction by the last administration. Those roads remain unrepaired up to today, and we need to find some money to repair them. As I said, the problem is compounded by the poor drainage in St. James North, and I know drainage now falls as well under the Ministry of Works and Maintenance. And I hope that the ministry will also look at that, improving the drainage system in St. James North. Again, money was borrowed from, I think, the IADB in terms of climate change mitigation by the last government. And the last government told me that some of that money, if I remember, it was about 7 million Barbados dollars, was to go down in Trent and parts of St. James North to mitigate the adverse effects of climate change, and I don't know that any went down whatsoever. So we have a duty to this country to repair
Honourable Member,
the
you have
roads.
5 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. In a holistic viewpoint, I know that there's the concept of taxpayers whose vehicles are damaged because of the poor state of the roads could make claims to the ministry, but the reality of that legal process takes a while. Certainly, I've never heard anyone under the previous government who was able to access any money from the ministry for breakdown of the vehicle or the tires through to jumping in potholes. I agree with the Honourable Member for St. George North that we could involve the private sector in this whole enterprise, because government will never find it possible to do everything in terms of social services in a country. And I would remind this Honourable Chambers that last year, in fact, I think it was Mr. Aaron Truss and a very public-spirited citizen would have made an offer to this ministry, the Ministry of Public Works, to do highways along the West Coast, and he was not responded to. But I say that to say that, yes, the private sector would be willing to assist in this regard, especially since they know that it is a serious government, as this government has within 4 short weeks shown that it is a government working 18-hour days, assiduously in the interest and service of the people. I look forward to, more resolutions being brought to repair the state of the roads in Barbados. As I said, St. James North, ma'am, is a road that is accessed by everyone. And this is the thing, that we can't look at roads in terms of constituencies, because all Barbadians travel on the roads. And St. James North, a tourist belt road as well. And we really need to ensure that the roads and drainage are properly fixed. The concept of lack of planning in terms of roads works has also been raised in this debate, whereby a road is done, finished, and then you see it dug up again a few months after to lay down whether it's natural gas, telephone lines, water, whatever. And I've never understood why we have failed our people in this respect, because you have to have planning, proper planning of roads. And I know the Honourable Member for Christchurch West as a business person, someone in commerce and understanding property development, will bring that to bear in his management of his ministry. The last government, you would recall, Madam Chair, would have spoken that they were going to bring a Utilities Act to this Parliament that would seek to deal with that kind of lack of proper planning in terms of road building and lane of utilities. And of course, that was one of the many promises that they made that they never fulfilled, and quite frankly never had the intention of fulfilling, because they were not serious about the governance of this country.
Member, please wrap up.
Yes, ma'am. So I end by reiterating my commitment to this resolution and to the whole concept of the need for us to get proper road network and proper roads in this country. I thank you, ma'am.
Honourable Member for St. Philip West.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I won't be long, as I know the constraints of time, but I want to first say that I certainly 100% agree with most of what has been said in this chamber today. I think across the island, the problems with the roads are well known, and they're pretty much the same. But there is one particular road in St. Philip West that I want the two honourable ministers to seriously take a look at. This is a road that, when I was a child, was used for illegal car racing. It is called Yorkshire Road. And this road, on one side, the road is broken off, and on the other side of it, trees are growing onto the road, and then it is very poorly lit. And so therefore, I have constituents who use this road for exercise, walking and running on mornings and on evenings. So for me, this is more of a hazard in terms of it is very dangerous. And I am appealing to you that when you have your supplementary, that you can widen this road for one, and ensure that there is some sort of a curb, because we really would not want to lose any of our constituents to this particular problem. When you look at rural Barbados and you talk about the tenantry roads, which I prefer to call the minor roads, I want to make a suggestion that we may want to look at refurbishing and redoing these roads using concrete. Reason being that concrete, as I am told, will last a bit longer. It may cost us a little bit more money, but I believe that if we do these roads this way, that we can get more out of them for a longer period. And us having to come back and to repair them will be a longer usage than what currently exists. A lot of these minor roads are filled with mud. If the rain falls, people cannot get into their homes. And I think in 2018, Barbados, that this is unacceptable, because we cannot be moving into the 21st century with 1945 problems. And I think that the ministers may want to look at this as a matter of urgency. And I speak not only for St. Philip West, but I speak for St. Philip South and St. Philip North as well. They surely know these problems. But my last thing that I want to place before the House is this. In the early presentation, the Honourable Minister for Christchurch West noted that there was a road at Lowthers that was 40%, but you can't be completed if you're 40%, but it was 40% done. And as the saying goes, Madam Chair, that the wise men came from the east. The wise people of St. Philip West would not want a road that is 40% completed, as you say. We would like to have that road finished as soon as possible, understanding very well the economic constraints that you are under. But the wise people would tell you that a promise is a comfort to a fool. And so therefore we would not want to be fooled by this, but we would like to see this particular road finished. It was done under the last administration. We all know why they did it. But I think it is imperative that we in the Barbados Labour Party take this opportunity seriously to complete this particular road. And if I may just add one more thing, is that since the parts of the road have been done, we are finding that persons are using indiscretion in using that very road. And it's becoming very hazardous for the children, so you may want to look at putting in what you call the sleeping policemen inside that thing. And my very last thing before I go is that 6 roads. We have a roundabout there where, again, you are asking people to use their discretion for the free flow of traffic. And we all know that when we are talking about human beings, discretion will vary from person to person. And I'm asking, and I know you've never seen it done in Barbados, but I've seen it done in other jurisdictions, that you put some street lights there that can control how the traffic flows. Because any evening, after 5 o'clock, when people are coming into 6 roads to get home, it is very difficult, and we have lots of blockage there for hours on end. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Honourable Member for St. Peter.
Good evening, Madam Chair. I am rising this afternoon to support this resolution. We want to reclassify the expenditure as outlined by the Honourable Member for Christchurch West. I want to say that when we're talking about roads, we are really talking about tools for both social and economic development. I think that roads need to be put into that context, because roads are the means by which we and our foreparents, even though they might have been carrot roads then, we went about our business. We went from home to work, from home to church, back home. Roads facilitated how we socialize. Roads are also important as it relates to trade and development. And in our country, in Barbados, the tourism experience is greatly enhanced by the provision of good roads. Roadways also facilitate housing development. And so, in that context, we as a party and as a government have to, and I didn't really want to repeat it, but we have to put, or to relegate to the nonsense that it is, the idea that there is anything good or helpful about potholes in roads. A country's development is measured in part by the way it allows its citizens to move around in the country. And so the provision of roads and the maintenance of roads is an important part of any government's agenda. And so in the few minutes that I have, I want to say that even though as a government we recognize that the previous administration neglected not just roads but infrastructure in general, because all Barbados would remember the struggle we had in St. Peter over the provision of something as essential as water and the replacement of water mains. And I've asked in every contribution that I've made in this honorable chamber, what has happened to the enormous amount of tax revenue that the previous government has taken from the pockets and purses of Barbadians? I ask it maybe not to get an answer in this honorable chamber, but because it is a question that we are asking, it is a question that the people of Barbados are asking that same question, and it is a question that will be guiding us as a government. We recognize that we are accountable to the people. I fully support, and I mentioned that in our debate when we discussed the budgetary proposals, I fully support collecting taxes for road repairs through petrol purchases, consumption, and adding the tax to that. Because I believe that those who use the roads and contribute to the deterioration of the roads have a responsibility to contribute to the restoration, the repair, and to the maintenance of those roads. Those who use them ought to participate in their refurbishment. In St. Peter, we have a couple of roads that I want to suggest to the honourable member for Christchurch West and the member for St. Lucie, honourable member for St. Lucie. Two of the roads in St. Peter that need to be addressed are roads where I think those who have participated in their deterioration ought to be required or to be asked or to be cajoled into assisting in their refurbishment. One of those roads is the access road to Black Bess. It is very little more than a carrot road, and there are no other access roads from the west or the south to get into Black Bess. And people, drivers, but not just drivers of vehicles, but those who travel in public service vehicles as well, have to endure a very rough ride to get into Black Bess. I want to say to the minister that there are businesses that have used and continue to use large vehicles, heavy vehicles, that have contributed to the deterioration of that road. And I believe that there should be some mechanism where they can contribute. Similarly, for the road in Mount Brevard to St. Peter, that road has deteriorated significantly, again because of work done next to the road, but the use of large vehicles on those roads. And I want to bring to the minister's attention the road, I know the honourable member for St. Lucie knows this road, the roads through Indian Ground. I share that road. I'm not asking for half of it to be repaired. I'm not waiting for the honourable member for St. Andrew to ask about that one. I'd like the entire road repaired. It is a very bad shape. Through Indian Ground, through Roebuck, and through Fort Hill. Roads in very bad shape, and those roads, I'll be writing to the minister to get some assistance where those roads are concerned. The road, the alley in Boscobel is another one. And I want to raise before I sit the whole matter of access. As I've been canvassing in St. Peter, I've come across a number of homes where public service vehicles, especially emergency vehicles, cannot access houses either because there are no roads or because the roads are so narrow that access is impossible. And every night I go to sleep concerned about the people who live in those areas. I have a serious concern when a fire truck cannot get to a house, when an ambulance cannot get to a house. And I'll be writing the minister on a couple of situations in Boscobel and in Speightstown where that is the case. In 2018, our citizens cannot be living in that kind of an environment or with that kind of fear hanging over their heads. And I do not believe it is right that they should be in a situation where it becomes the norm, because we know that stuff can happen. Poor roads do damage to vehicles, but I want to submit that poor roads, poor infrastructure has also done significant damage to the economic potential of this country. And so even as I support this resolution to reclassify the expenditure head, I would want for us as a government, but for all Barbados to recognize the importance of infrastructure. It is not just so that the road can look good with Barbara Green, but there is social and there's economic bearing coming from the provision of good infrastructure. And I would want to encourage us to see roads in that regard and ensure that those of us who use them properly, and those who contribute to their deterioration do something to facilitate their restoration. And so, Madam Chair, I would want to say to this honorable chamber that as a government, we understand the enormity of the situation. Many of my colleagues have said, we know that all of the roadways that are in need of repair cannot be repaired. But I would want, as a member of the government, to say to the people of Barbados that we will do our best and we will ensure that roads across the country are repaired. But we will, as good stewards of the funds we receive, either through taxpayers' contributions or through loans that we receive, we will be accountable to the people, and the people of Barbados can rest assured that as we collect and as we borrow, they will be able to see the results of our stewardship. I thank you, Madam Chair.
Honourable Member for St. Michael Northwest.
Madam Chair, good evening. I rise on the behalf of the good people of St. Michael Northwest and Barbados to give my support on this supplementary outlined by the member of Christchurch West. And I would like to say that St. Michael Northwest was neglected for the last 10 years. And I always said then, and I will say now, that representation, there is more to representation than just handouts. And I said that to say that infrastructure in that constituency was replaced with handouts. And the cry for roads went on deaf ears. And the good people of Brighton Terrace and Brighton Crescent could not even receive a road from the former representative. And with that being said, ma'am, it hurts my heart to see the good people of Pearl Bay still have to traverse on what some of us may consider or call a cart road. Some may call it a mall road. And the good people of Barker's Gap, Dickens Road, still have to traverse on what we will consider a mall road. And Eagle Hall Primary School is another area that the people have been requesting a better road and also requesting road humps to help benefit not only the children that attend the school, but also the residents in Bridge Gap. The residents in Ashton Village are still waiting for the remainder of the road and road humps to be given to them. And the residents on Deacons Road for the longest while have been calling out for a better road and sidewalks along that road. And Madam Chair, I can honestly say that this government don't only plan to collect taxes, but also to let the taxpayers of Barbados benefit from better roads. And I want to say to the good member of Christchurch West, continue to do good, and good will continue to follow you. And I want to say, Madam Chair, that the future is bright. And the good people of St. Michael Northwest, the future is bright for them. And I said that to say because they now have true representation and transformation now in progress. And with that being said, ma'am, I oblige.
Honourable Member for Christchurch West.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. First, let me thank all of those members who spoke and contributed to this debate in this supplementary under Head 40. And I've taken everything that has been said to note, and I will give you my earnest pledge that we will be working to be able to complete as much as we can for the people of Barbados. I want first to speak to road humps. There is a process that has to be gone through. So any particular member of parliament who wants road humps in the area, you must first write to the ministry, write to either myself or the member for St. Lucie, and let us start the process so that a file is created, and the particular, it's called the traffic division in the ministry, and the traffic division will take that file under advisement for the request. They have to make certain studies in terms of how much the road is actually used, where the humps would be placed, if the humps are in fact viable. So certain technical things have to be done before you can get road humps in any particular area. But the first part of the process is to write to the ministry so that we can start the process for anybody who wants road humps in the area. Similarly, with respect to drainage, I heard especially for the member for Christchurch East Central, who spoke about the drainage in Wotton, and due to the benefits of modern technology, I've already alerted the drainage unit, and they will be looking into the issue of drainage in Wotton. But again, I urge honourable members, the way to start the process for things that you request at the ministry is through the paper trail. So it means writing to the ministry under your particular either constituency or ministry. Well, constituency, I guess, would be the best use. And let us start a file so that we can get all of these things in place and to all the relevant departments as it relates to the Ministry of Public Works. I also want to alert all members here in this chamber that this is the first time that we've had a minister in the ministry, as well as the minister and then a minister in the ministry. And what we have done with the member for St. Lucie and myself is we split the country into two based on the demarcation of Urban and Rural Development Commission. And we're trying to follow a similar pattern where all of the urban constituencies would be overseen specifically by myself, which is essentially St. Michael and Christchurch. That is 16 constituencies. And all of the rural constituencies, which would normally fall under the Rural Development Commission, that is the other 14, would be overseen primarily by the member for St. Lucie and then reporting to the minister for final approval. So just bear that in mind when you write your letters. You know which constituency and where your constituency you're reporting. So you have two ministers working every day to make sure that we address all the needs of every single constituency in Barbados. And I could not speak in this debate without saying, finally, we have a member for St. Lucie who speaks sense in this honourable chamber. And I want to thank the member for St. Lucie, who has given tremendous support to me in this new ministry, and we look forward to working together to making the Ministry of Public Works not only accessible to all members, but also making a significant. I also want to say, with respect to damaged vehicles, there's a process. It has to go through the legal unit. We have a legal unit within the department. And again, once we get the information of damaged vehicles and where the vehicles was damaged, it goes directly to the legal unit, and the legal unit will be working on addressing the problems of damaged vehicles. We know many people have damaged their vehicles, not only with potholes, but also with broken culverts, bridges, all sorts of things have happened to people's vehicles. And we have, again, a process. It has to be assessed. It isn't every single damage to a vehicle that was caused by a problem in the road. It could have been other issues or mitigating factors, and we have to assess all of that. And people are sent out to do assessments with respect to damage that was done to vehicles. With respect to potholes and the way that potholes are filled, I want to reassure the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central that in my former life, I was very averse at how good you can fill holes. And I filled holes for many, many years as a dental practitioner. And what the importance in how a pothole is filled is the preparation of the hole. And I take the point that sometimes in their need to get as many of the holes filled as quickly as possible, they may not be paying as close attention as they can or they should to the preparation of the hole in advance of filling. And I will take it under advisement, and if we have to get our technical people to go through and retrain the people with the pothole and who are charged with filling the potholes, we will take that under advisement and get our technical people to work on it. Because we cannot be wasting the resources of the country, not at this time. And we cannot be wasting resources that the people of Barbados expect us to use as wisely and as judiciously as they would expect a good and earnest government to do. So I take it under advisement, and if we have to do a retraining process, we will do a retraining process so that we don't waste money in filling the potholes. I also want to reassure the member for St. George North that you would recall that during the mini-budget, we voted, the Honourable Prime Minister said that $10 million in equipment would be purchased. And that $10 million will not only go to the central ministry, but also go to re-equipping the depots. You may recall that under the last administration, we had a whole bobcat went missing. A whole bobcat went missing and has not been found as yet. A whole bobcat, not a bobcat tire, not a bobcat bucket, not a bobcat seat, a whole bobcat went missing and has yet to be found. So I want to reassure honourable members that not only will we be re-equipping the depots, but we will put in certain security measures in place as well, so that we do not see again a whole bobcat go missing from a particular depot. So, honourable members, rest assured that we will be working to try to address all of your concerns. Now, when I first started this matter, I said that when I was in opposition, I would always speak about one road, and I persisted and persisted till that one road was done. So I want honourable members to look very carefully at all the roads that you have recommended. Some people recommended 10, 11, I heard all sorts of numbers. Somebody said 20 roads, I heard. And prioritize, because at the end of the day, politics and life is about choices. And we need to choose very carefully which roads we are going to be doing. And I would ask honourable members to look very carefully at the constituency, prioritize, and choose one road of absolute priority and send that road forward to the ministry and let us see that we can get the resources to fix that one road. And I will give you my erstwhile commitment that once I get those, we will work with the minister, the member for St. Lucie, and myself to try to address those issues as a matter of urgency. Honourable members, I'm obliged. Madam Chair, I beg to move that this head 40 stand part.
The question is that, I did not hear him. Head 40. The question is that head 40 stand par. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. All those honourable members not in favour, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Madam Chairman, I beg that this resolution, I beg to move that you do not report to His Honour the Speaker the passing of one money resolution in Committee of Supply.
The question is, I report to the Speaker on the passing of one, this is Bill, on resolution without amendments.
I don't want you to, I don't want you. The chairman of committees has reported to me the passing of one money resolution in the Committee of Supply.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this resolution be read a first time.
Question is that this resolution be read for the first time. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg that.
Question is that this resolution be read a second time. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. All those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this resolution be now agreed to.
Question is that this resolution be agreed to. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
We have come to the end of today's sitting. Right, with that, Mr. Speaker, we've come to the end of today's sitting. I beg to move the adjournment of the sitting until the 10th of July, Tuesday the 10th of July, at 10 a.m. in the morning.
Question is that this honourable house do stand adjourned until the 10th of July at 10 a.m. in the forenoon. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This honorable chamber stands adjourned until the 10th of July at 10 a.m. in the forenoon.